Promotion to manager means taking charge and exerting power. It also means you're vulnerable to a number of traps. A common one is hubris, which can be defined as the excessive pride and self-confidence that can come with power. For a new manager, hubris can lead to any number of problems. The most effective way to counter hubris in yourself is by showing humility. In this episode, we'll talk about the dangers of hubris, as well as how to assess and demonstrate your own level of humility. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
Look around and you'll see numerous instances of hubris. Start at the very top of your organization, the CEO and senior management. How many times have you seen instances of overconfidence where someone will make a wrong decision and take their eye off the product or service that's been highly successful in order to focus on a new idea they have? Or instances where a CEO grossly overspends on an acquisition in an attempt to seal their legacy, perhaps as their retirement approaches.
Yeah, Fred, I think, you and I both worked at companies where that has happened. Sometimes a company survives and sometimes it doesn't. Often when someone begins to breathe their own smoke, they begin to be more focused on their own activities and less focused on the people that work for them. Now, they don't bother to take the time to do what's necessary to build and maintain the relationships that make a team and the company successful. When staff members sense, and they do sense, that the leader has lost interest in them, it creates all kinds of internal problems.
It starts with an attitudinal change where staff care less about their work and less about maintaining their relationships, and it can go downhill from there. One of the interesting things, just as Rick just mentioned, if you think that people don't see what's going on, you're absolutely wrong. I could give you instance after instance where I have coached people and management thinks that people don't understand, and they absolutely see what's going on. A specific example is when there was going to be a large downsizing. I was in with senior management and some human resource folks, and they were saying, and no one knows about this. And the next day when the downsizing started to occur, people said to me, we knew about this for weeks ahead of time. So anytime that you think that people in your organization don't see what's going on, you're off base.
Yeah, you are breathing your own smoke.
That's exactly right. And poor attitude can be reflected in less productive work, less willingness to work with peers and to have peers' backs, as well as staff beginning to look for new jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They sense it and they start acting on it on their own. Now, one antidote to a leader suffering from too much hubris is humility. That is the freedom from pride or arrogance. Humility requires having an accurate perception of your own abilities, accomplishments, and limitations. So humility allows the manager to focus on openness and altruism as two of the keys to using power toward a collective purpose. So, Fred, how does a leader check on their own level of hubris or humility.
I want to get to that in a second, Rick, but I also want to say that sometimes for new managers, what you said is, if I have too much humility, people won't respect me, and, I was hired to be the leader of this organization. It's just not true. Humility is absolutely important. Just as you said, the freedom from pride or arrogance, people respect that. They appreciate it, and they will look forward to being on your team if you show it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I worked at a company for a number of years, and the leaders, it was almost textbook. There were some of the leaders who were just so arrogant that you couldn't walk into their office. These were heads of the company. And on the other hand, there were leaders that would come up behind you in the checkout aisle of the grocery store and talk to you. Or you'd see them riding to the train on rickety, rusty old bicycles in the morning. So they were, really people of the people, as it were. So, and it makes a whole lot of difference in terms of the total attitude of the company.
It really does.
Yeah. So how do you assess that? How do you?
Well, a quick way to assess your own humility is to do a bit of self-assessment. A scale developed by Mikhail Johnson and Terrence Mitchell asks, what would your colleagues say about you? For example, would your coworkers and staff agree that you actively seek feedback, even if it is critical of you? That you admit when you don't know how to do something? That you acknowledge when others have more knowledge or skills than you do? And that you take notes on others' strengths?
Yeah, also, and I get where you're going with this. Do you often compliment others on their strengths or accomplishments? And do you show appreciation for the contributions of others? And do you show that you're willing to learn from others? That's all about humility and the recognition of what others are contributing, sometimes to your own expense.
It really is. And what you need to do with these questions is to take notes of areas where you're strong and areas where you need improvement. And the areas where you're strong is important because you want to continue to do those things. And the areas where you need improvement is important because you want to see what you can do in order to strengthen in those areas. There's a number of steps you can take to better show your humility. One thing I need to say is none of them are easy. It takes time, thought, and trying them in real time to improve in any of these areas. Some of them improve supporting your employees. Show them that you're willing to listen, weigh the value of different ideas, and accept each person for who they are.
Yeah, I want to re-emphasize that how important it is to listen. And we've talked about this before, but we can't overstate the importance of just actively listening in order to understand what a staff member is communicating. It's especially important not to fall into the trap of trying to decide what you're going to say next, rather than actively processing what the staff person is saying.
Boy, that last thing you said is so hard. You can be in a conversation. It happens to me. I can say to them, don't do that. And then I get into a conversation and I am doing it.
Oh, yeah, well, we all do it. And that's why we say it's just common trap, hard to avoid.
It is. Another is to accept constructive criticism. Let staff know that you actively seek out and value feedback and that there are no negative consequences for expressing disagreement with you. And I have to tell you, in coaching, that is a very tough one. Whether you're a new manager or an experienced manager and you are willing to do this, you have to keep telling staff, it's okay. You've got to bring it out. One way to get at this is that In consulting assignments, at the end of each assignment, there is an evaluation that occurs where people give feedback to each other. That's the kind of thing that you want to stress. You also want to admit when you've made a mistake and let staff know that what you plan to do to correct it, and that you honestly appreciate that they pointed it out to you. All too often, managers communicate that they don't like to be corrected, and this can lead to small mistakes becoming major problems.
Oh, yes. We've all experienced that, but again, I worked with a guy, and it was a very hard case, but he was so insecure that not only could he not admit when he didn't know something or made a mistake, but if you ask him a question, if he was telling you to do something and you ask him a question just to get clarification, he would get defensive, and because he thought you were questioning his judgment or, what he was asking you to do when you really wanted to know a little more information. He was so defensive, and that's, it really is a sign of insecurity.
No question.
Yeah, and related to admitting mistakes is being able to freely admit when you don't know something. Watch how much respect you gain from the members of your staff when you start doing that. I mean, this is. I think I've told you, Fred, this story of I went to work at a company because when I was interviewing the person that would be my main client, and I said, "What do you want from your research department?" And he said, "We want them to tell us what the blank we're doing because we don't have a clue."
That's great.
And that when I heard that, I said, "I'm in. This is the kind of company I want to work for." So you need to give others credit. Look for the places where you can give others credit, and as often as possible, praise them in public, especially when important goals are met.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's equally important that you accept responsibility when goals aren't met. You never look good when you are blaming others. And yet, it's hard to admit when goals haven't been met, but you need to do it and then let people know what it is that you're going to do in order to make up the ground that you lost. You want to empower team members. You can do that by getting down into the nitty-gritty with teams and watch how much they appreciate that you're one of them. And it's always when times are tough. Times are tough, you get involved, you help sometimes frontline people get their work done, and your respect just goes up many, many notches.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And finally, you always want to be asking questions, but you want to ask questions to seek information and not to make judgments. I mean, like the guy I was talking about, he always thought you were judging him when you ask a question. And you have to be careful that people don't misinterpret why you're asking and what you want the information for. But again, never be afraid to show that you don't know something or don't understand something. That's another problem people often have, is they don't ask a question because they're afraid to show their ignorance. Again, it just shows a lack of self-confidence. And don't be reluctant to ask for help. Ask for help from staff members who know more than you do on a given task or assignment. And all of this will increase team productivity. Humility will help you also to coach your staff to treat each other with humility, to build stronger support and rapport, and to collaborate with one another.
That's so true.
And above all, always attempt to treat everyone like you'd want to be treated yourself.
So in summary, hubris can be a problem for a new or even an experienced manager. And since you are hired or promoted, you may feel it's your responsibility to have all or most of the answers. You don't need to have all the answers, and hubris will be viewed negatively by the members of your team. The best defense against hubris is to show humility. We have discussed a number of actions you can take to demonstrate humility to the members of your team.
We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.